Notice to the public, if you wish to address the council, please complete the public wishing the council address the council form located on the table near the entrance to the building and give it to either the chairman or council clerk prior to beginning the meeting. Individuals address the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. The meeting is going to start in 2 minutes. All cell phones, pages, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. I'm going to call the meeting of Wednesday, November 18, 2020, 6 p.m. to order. We'll have an invocation by Councilman Dirk Guidry and a pledge of allegiance by Councilman John Amity. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your blessings bestowed upon us and ask that you guide us to you reach out to those less fortunate, especially during the season of Thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. LaCour.
Mr. Amity? Here. Ms. Domingue? Here. Mr. Darren Guidry? Here. Mr. Babin? Here. Mr. Dirk Guidry? Here. Mr. Charles Clare?
Here.
Mr. Navy? Here. Mr. Harding? Mr. Michel? Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, ma'am. Approve the minutes of the regular council session held on October 14, 2020. Move Mr. John Navy, second Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries. Distribute the minutes of the regular council session held on November 4, 2020. We've done that. Approve accounts payable list for 11/9/2020 and 11/16/2020. Move Mr. John Davies, second Mr. Amity. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? We'll show one abstention, Mr. Darren Guidry. Motion carries. Item 1, general business. We have a combination commending the Terrebonne Parish Register of Voters Office on record-breaking ballots cast during early voting of the Homer Terrebonne Civic Center and a successful election day. Mr. Babin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's with great pleasure that I read this tonight because this was a very historic election in a lot of ways. Number of people voting, but COVID. And I thought a wonderful job was done by all. So let me read this. Whereas the Terrebonne Parish Council and Parish President Gordon E. Dove wish to acknowledge and commend the Terrebonne Parish Registrar of Voters, Rhonda R. Rogers, and staff for their dedication and service provided to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish during this past election cycle. And whereas the Terrebonne Parish Registrar of Voters office did an outstanding job of providing early voting services at the Homer Terrebonne Civic Center from October 16th through 27th, 2020, with record-breaking ballots cast. And whereas Terrebonne Parish election process was successful due to these public servants working to ensure a smooth and voting experience, and whereas democracy is vested in the people and of the people to freely participate in the democratic process to ensure the freedom we hold true in a free world, and whereas the privilege and right to vote has been carried out with the utmost efficiency and tact. Now, therefore, be it acknowledged by the Terrebonne Parish Council and Parish President Gordon E. Dove on behalf of the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government that the services of these individuals are hereby recognized and recorded in the proceedings of the Terrebonne Parish Council this 18th day of November 2020. And the Registrar of Voters staff are Rhonda R. Rogers, Registrar, Devonia Simmons, Chief Deputy, and please, if I mess up somebody's name, blame it all on me because it's me, all right? Patricia Bro, Confidential Assistant, Dorcenia Coulon, Deputy Registrar, Amphis Scott, Deputy Registrar, Annette Stewart, Temporary Deputy Registrar, Marcella Verdant, Temporary Deputy Registrar of Voters, Billy Chasson, District Manager, Jabaran Parker, a machine technician, Jared Stapleton, voting machine technician, early voting commissioners, Jamie Bennett, Linda Henderson, Ramona Neal, Mildred Parfait, Gerard Richard, Alexandra Simmons, and Edna Walker. And it's signed by Parish President Gordon Dove, Steve Trosclair as chairman, and endorsed by the entire Parish Council. Ms. Rogers?
Are y'all wanting me to say something?
Yes, please.
Okay,
please.
okay.
Mr. Dove's going to come up
All
there
right.
and hand you the.
Okay, thank y'all very much. It's nice to be recognized for something that you do on a daily basis, and that, I mean, it's our job to do it. It was tough. We were under definitely extraordinary circumstances, and I did write a little bit to kind of put things into perspective. I am a numbers person, so although we broke records, and yes, we had more days of early voting, more hours of early voting than usual, to put things in perspective, we voted 41% of the people who voted in this election. We had 65,591 eligible voters for the November 3rd election. Out of that, 46,636 voters voted, which is a 71.1% turnout. And we voted 19,175 between in-person and mail ballot voters. So we voted 41%. Our staff of 7, plus some amazing early voting commissioners and some Secretary of State employees voted that. That's mind-blowing. The way elections look is changing. When we succeed, we usually do so because others have helped. I say this because these ladies behind me and the ones that couldn't make it today deserve that recognition. Through a pandemic, through public fear and doubt, through hurricanes, they showed up and they smiled and they got the job done. We are tired and our families miss us, but it's our job to show up, and we did just that and continue to do that moving into our next election, because we do have another one. We start Friday. We did not do this alone, so thanks to the parish, the Civic Center, HPD, the Clerk of Court, and the Secretary of State staff for supporting us through it all. This was a huge team effort, and every one of these agencies played a big role in the success of early voting. And one last thing, anytime I go speak around the parish, I always say, Louisiana got it right when it comes to elections, and I mean that. I trust our system, and I trust the process, and I'm proud to say that. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Just hang tight, we have a couple lights.
Yeah, Rhonda, I just wanted to echo what you were saying, because I want to thank Dean Swesh and the Civic Center, because I know they did an outstanding job, and HPD to give all the protection that they did. Our IT department helped you guys out
Wonderful.
an awful lot. And you said something that's real important. We have a general election coming up early December. Early voting starts again this Friday.
Friday at the Civic Center again.
Could you tell us, the general public, what is going to be on the general election?
Right now, we have the city marshal runoff.
Right.
That is parish-wide, and we do have one constitutional amendment, and there's one Republican State Central Committee just for 4 precincts. So it's a very small ballot. It's not as big as the one we had in November, but every election is important.
And that my point in bringing that out is the parish-wide election for city marshal. I'm not supporting anybody. I'm just saying that these two individuals spent a lot of energy, time, and money to be in a runoff. It's our responsibility to go out there and respond. We need to have the same type of turnout, and I know it won't be, but the same type of turnout as we had in the primary, because that is our system. It's a privilege that for us to vote. A lot of people died over the right to vote.
Correct.
So again, I know there's a lot of other lights. Thank y'all very much for what you did.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Darren Gidry?
Yeah, and I am, of course, proud to present you and endorse this this commendation. I didn't have a chance to serve on the election board of supervisors with you. I remember you were training my last year that I was on the supervisors.
Yes, that's
But
true.
serving in that for 6 years, I realized how much work goes in to these elections that you guys do. So when I saw the amount of people and what happened at the Civic Center, I knew how much work went behind that, and I think that's a lot of your credit. And I know I called you and suggested the Civic Center. I can't take all the credit for that because I got actually a phone call from a resident saying we should do it at the Civic Center, and I said that's a good idea and passed it on to you. And I don't know if you made that call or who made that call, but it was definitely the right call to move it to the Civic Center. I don't know how there's no way we could have done it downstairs.
We met, Mr. Toops and I met quite a lot, and we were brainstorming all kind of different scenarios because I did not want to move. It's hard to not be in my office because at the end of the day, what a lot of people don't realize is that when we closed shop at the Civic Center, we had to come back to this office and finish our work. So we didn't finish for the day till 9, sometimes 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and we were back at it at 7 a.m. the next morning. So not being at my office where the daily work is going on was challenging. And so I tried really hard, and Mr. Toops kept saying, we need to go look at the Civic Center. We need to go look at the Civic Center. So after we exhausted every avenue, I said, let's go. And I couldn't argue.
Every comment I got was positive.
Yes.
And I know you're not an elected official, but if you were, I guarantee you would get reelected. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Mr. Navy?
Yes, and Ron, I want to compliment you all too. I mean, that was very admirable what you all did, because I know during the election, a lot of people was waiting for the early vote as usual. It was a non-traditional process, but people didn't realize that the reason why you all still had to count those early votes. So the election day votes came in before the early votes. Traditionally, it usually the early votes then.
I'm usually first.
Yes, and it was
Yes.
I'm understanding it was a beast for you all to really count all those numbers and get that out, and I want to commend that on you all. But at the end of the day, as someone just alluded, the democracy took place. Everyone was allowed to have an opportunity, whether they early voted, whether they mail in, whatever the situation was, democracy took place. And I say that to say this, people don't realize, over 65,000 registered voters in Terrebonne Parish, over 65,000. And to say how many people voted, you have 39% of those 65,000 that are Republicans, 30% that are Democrat, and 30% that others are independent. So everybody had an opportunity. It wasn't just specifically designed for a particular party. It was a people time, and democracy took place, and I wanted to commend you on that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Michelle?
Yeah, they did great. And then, we're talking a lot about the Civic Center, but everybody who went to vote at their voting places knows that a whole lot additional and new preparation had to go into that.
Correct.
Because of the COVID and because of the sanitizing between each voter and all of the equipment that had to be there. It was quite amazing. And so, we truly appreciate it. And if someone wants to be a commissioner, who do they contact?
They contact Miss Nancy, who happens to be in the audience
Okay.
for the clerk of court. Yes, and we
So
get
Miss
those calls
Nancy-
a lot too. So yes, we need
Miss
we
Nancy
need
at the clerk of court's office, because some of the elderly people who have done this in the past don't really want to do that right now because of the
Correct.
pandemic, and so your help may very well be needed. So if it's something you think you might be able to do, contact Miss Nancy at the clerk of court's office.
Yes, thank you.
Thank y'all.
And Rhonda, I'm proud to say that I'm one of your record numbers. And I want you to know that my experience at the Civic Center was fantastic.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it was just as smooth as the operation as you're ever going to see for being thrown together, kind of a last minute deal.
Right.
I expected to get in line and wait in line. When I walked into the Civic Center, the line was I was standing at the door, the entry door to the Civic Center, so I had to make a little zigzag and get in. And it took me 28 minutes. So that's great. I mean, it was fluid. Everything went. I didn't see any issues with anybody, so it was a good deal. And the big thing is, Terrebonne Parish did find out all their numbers that night.
That is
So
right. Might
thank
have
you.
been
Yeah.
late, but we found it out that night. Yes, thank y'all. Come right here.
Right, do these ladies want to say anything? Y'all want to speak? Okay, thanks. Thank you. Okay. And before I move on, there's two things I want to do. First thing, I want to acknowledge our DA sitting in the office, Joe Waits. Not in the office, but in the congregation back there. And also tonight is Mike Toops' tonight, but today is Mike Toops' birthday. And so we want to wish Mike Toops a happy birthday today. Okay, moving on. We have a commendation commending the Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Court's office on a successful election day, Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Thank you. Whereas the Terrebonne Parish Council and Parish President Gordon E. Dove wish to acknowledge and commend the Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Court's office for its dedication and service provided to the citizens of Terrebonne Parish during the past election cycle. And whereas early voting and Election Day 2020 were met with many challenges as a result of COVID-19 restrictions and social distancing. Whereas Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Court Teresa A. Robichaud, Chief Deputy Clerk of Court Jody P. Burton, and Election Supervisor Nancy A. Boudreau, with the assistance of the Clerk of Court staff operating at almost 100% participation in order to make Election Day a success in Terrebonne Parish. And whereas all of the polling precincts, commissioners in charge, and commissioners were also instrumental in the success of Election Day, November 3rd, 2020, and are to be commended for the fine job they did tabulating and submitting all ballots to the Clerk of Court's office in a timely manner. And whereas these public servants stepped up to serve our country and protect our democracy, and whereas Election Day 2020 would not have been possible without the help of every single election worker, volunteer, and voter. Now, therefore, be acknowledged by the Terrebonne Parish Council and Parish President Gordon E. Dove on behalf of the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government that the service of these individuals, Teresa A. Robichaud, Clerk of Court, Jody P. Burton, Chief Deputy Clerk of Court, Nancy A. Boudreau, Election Supervisor, Terrebonne Parish Clerk of Court staff, are hereby recognized and duly recorded into the proceedings of the Terrebonne Parish Council on this 18th day of November 2020, signed by Parish President Gordon Dove, Steve Trosclair, and the entire Terrebonne Parish Council. Thank you all. Mr. Dove. Ms. Boudreau?
And before we get started, moving on with this, I also want to acknowledge our Sheriff Sonia. Forgive me for, I had it written on the back of the sheet and I didn't flip it over. So once again, I apologize.
I want y'all to know I was smiling. Ms. Robichaud couldn't be here with us tonight, but she did provide a statement, and I'd like to read that to you, please. On behalf of the Clerk of Court's office, I thank you for your commendation and acknowledgement of the success by our office on a well-run historical election. The election of November 3rd, 2020 was the pinnacle of elections held in this parish and throughout this country, and I am proud of the work my staff and I accomplished. Without a doubt, the achievement of reliable results with such an election is the product of a dedicated staff, and our eagerness to work well with our Registrar of Voters Office and the Secretary of State's office, including their technicians, our building custodians, and parish sign employees. Just as important, it took hundreds of well-trained and dedicated election commissioners who are committed to serving the voters of this community. But I would be remiss if I did not thank Earl Hughes, our Office of Emergency Preparedness Director, who worked tirelessly with me and energy to get every single precinct that was without electricity up and running following Hurricane Zeta. Without his efforts, Election Day would not have run as efficiently as it did. Again, I am humbled by your acclamation and assure the citizens of Terrebonne Parish that I and my staff look forward to serving you in every capacity with courtesy, dedication, and always with integrity. Thank you, Teresa A. Robichaud.
Miss Nancy, I'd like to tell y'all, thank y'all for the entire staff of the Clerk of Court's office. Y'all did an outstanding job. And that was one of my biggest worries, because I know down these bars, we didn't have electricity to these voting machines. And I was hollering 5 or 6 days before, what are we gonna do? But Earl Hughes, as you said, he came out and did a fantastic job. Y'all did a fantastic job, and the Registrar of Voters did a great job. So thank y'all for what y'all do, and people go out and vote, because they got a lot of men that died on the battlefield and served this country to give y'all the right to vote. So give them the respect and go out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gitter.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, Nancy, I just want to echo that as well. Please tell Teresa. In fact, I spoke to her yesterday. She called me on the telephone. Y'all did. Again, people forget. We think about the pandemic, but we had a pandemic and hurricane after hurricane after hurricane, and down the bars were, especially Montague and Little Car, were hit extremely hard. And it took a lot of effort from a lot of people to do it. And I'll just say again, and I've said this up here before, we need to go out and vote, ladies and gentlemen. We're all elected up here by the majority of the minority, because only the minority and number of people go out and vote. And that's a shame, okay? So please, like Dirk said, people have died on the battlefields to give us that right to vote. Please go out and do it. But again, thank you all for an outstanding job.
Thank you, Mr. Babin.
Darren Guidry?
And I know the registrar's office is the face of the elections, because when people early vote, normally they're early voting in the registrar's office downstairs. But, on election night, I mean, you guys, it's a combination of a lot of what you guys have done behind the scenes that people don't realize. I can only imagine although we didn't have a blanket mail-in voting, I'm sure we had a lot more mail-in voting this election than we did in the previous. And doesn't your office have to go through and compare signatures and do all of that? Isn't somebody at the clerk's office doing that?
In Ms. Robichaud's capacity as the president of the Parish Board of Election Supervisors, on Election Day, she works with Ms. Rhonda, who's also a member of the board, and the other members of the board, and they verify the flaps and information and everything.
Because I know when I would show up at the election board of supervisors, y'all would have all of the mail-in ballots verified, and the ones set aside that you didn't. And so a lot of that was done way ahead of time. And so I don't know if people realized how much work you guys do even before the election began.
Yeah.
And
that part of it is primarily handled by the Registrar of Voters Office. She does a lot of the background work before the meeting, so it goes, efficiently when we get there.
That's it. Thank you, and please share with Ms. Teresa too how much we appreciate the job that you and the registrar's office did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gitter.
Mr. Harding?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Nancy, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, Mr. Gordon.
One thing I've really understood, and you just actually mentioned that, a leader is only as good as their followers. And I must say to the members that are, the people that are here congregating, and those people out there, Ms. Nancy has been a wonderful person, has worked for the parish for a number of years, that have worn a number of hats. And she's basically a historian, and it's a wonderful conversation, and you one heck of a substitute to come in for your supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. And Nancy, y'all do a great job. Keep it up, and we'll start again next week.
We've already started.
Okay.
Thank you all very much.
All right, moving on. Item C is a resolution providing for canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the special election held in Terrebonne Parish of Terrebonne, State of Louisiana on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, for the parish-wide proposition number 1, one mill rededication PC, and proposition number 2, one mill rededication PC. Move, Mr. John Amity, second. Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item D is a presentation by South Central Planning and Development Commission regarding requesting the parish president to enter into a joint agreement with the school board to have South Central Planning Commission provide professional redistricting services for the 2021 redistricting plan. Mr. Belanger. Hang on, let me get your light on, state your name and address. And as soon as I can get this thing to move, we'll get your light on. State your name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Belanger, CEO, South Central Planning and Development Commission. I live in Montague, Louisiana, 1189 Highway 55. Mr. Chairman, council members, parish president, Mr. President, thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. We heard a lot of good things tonight about the elections, and we're here every 10 years, trying to redistrict council districts and school board districts. And we provided to you all a proposal in which South Central Planning would love to work for you and also the school board in order so that we could try to devise one plan for both the council and the school board. We're under some challenges this year. The Census Bureau will not release the census until July 31st of 2021. The school board has to be completed by March of 2022. That gives us roughly, and we're targeting to try to hopefully finish by January. So we're probably about 5 months to be able to develop a plan and have it proposed and presented to both the school board and the council. And I'm just here to answer any questions if you may have any. We did put a price on the proposal. I think it was $50,000 inclusively for both the school board and the council. Just a little tidbit. 10 years ago, it was a lot higher than that. I think we charged somewhere like 55, and 10 years later, we're still going to be under the cost of what we did it 10 years ago. So we hope for your consideration for this proposal, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Gidry, hang on, let me get this. All right, Dan
Now-
Gidry.
Last year, this was done by the council, and then the piggybacked by the school board.
So
I mean, last year, 10 years ago.
Exactly. So in 2011, the council had to do it first. Their elections came first. This year, we're presented with a different challenge. The school board has to run first. The uniqueness is you control the voting precincts. You are the entity that approves or disapproves of consolidations or splits. We work very closely with the registrar to be able to make sure that we try to minimize the number of precincts out there, and we're looking to do that again. So we need to have you at the table with the school board so that when we come to the council, it's not unknown what's going to be presented.
So what you're presenting is a cost split.
It's an equal split, 25,000 each, up to 50,000.
And
Not
that's
to
something
exceed.
that was not done 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the council paid for it.
That, well, you paid initially, then we didn't know if the school board would use this or not, and at the end, they did use this, and it was a separate bill.
A separate bill. So this should be a really big savings this time at this. It would be
I
less than
think you're going to be
half of-
saving somewhere around 25,000.
Great. That sounds good to me. Thanks.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, Kevin, I know this may be a little bit premature, but the hope is to try to get both the districts, the school board and the council districts the same, because right now they're not exactly the same geographically. I mean, that is the goal.
That is our goal, and ultimately, representation of minorities is another true goal of ours. But I think if we can bring both the council and the school board together and the willingness to work together as they were in the past, we just had a few little incidents where we couldn't come to a conclusive conclusion. So I think if we start early enough and start talking about the needs and the wants and so forth, we could put a lot of these problems aside early.
Yeah, it's not just as easy as putting 12,000 here, 12,000 there. It's a
No,
lot
sir.
more involved than that. So,
There's a lot of likes and dislikes by every elected official.
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Navy.
Yeah, well, Kevin, you know where I'm going with this. So, and I think there's some concerns that I'm going to have because I know, once again, as we have talked and alluded to earlier during the years, that it's going to be difficult carving out the minority districts, District 1 and District 2. Right now, that's a lot of similarity with the school district and almost identical, School District 1 and 2. And right now, with some of the proposals that we have discussed before, and minorities moving out of those districts. And I know the census is putting us in a crunch situation with that.
Right.
I wonder if we're going to even have enough time to vet all that stuff because, one of the things that you are going to have to present a plan, because I don't want to see them combined. I don't want 1 and 2 as one district. I don't know what some of the ideas you may have, but is that some of the concerns that you do have? I want to know that right up front too.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the whole reason we're here today, so that we can start the dialogue to be able to understand the parameters of what we have to work within. We can't decide how the Census Bureau made its count. Now, we can maybe challenge it, eventually, but the real issue is trying to have one man, one vote, ensuring the minorities have the ability to be elected, and in a hopefully minority-majority district. The trend, which is Terrebonne Parish is a really good place because we have integrated very well. And it's made it very challenging in redistricting. And it's been that trend for the last 30 years. And we still project that it's going to be challenging. But as we did in the past, we had a higher deviation. We presented that to Secretary of State's office and also provided it to the Department of Justice, and no one challenged it, and we were able to get through with both school board and council. But if someone does challenge the one man, one vote rule, and you have a higher deviation of 10%, you have to be able to substantiate the reasons why you did it. And one of the things are creation of minority districts.
Yes, and that's a big problem. And I know you and I discussed this maybe 9-10 years ago when we were first doing the portion. So I'm a little concerned. That's why I think even if we wanted to challenge it, the timelines is kind of challenging in itself because of the way this census is, and then you all have to have that for March of 2022 for the school board race.
That is correct. March of 2022 is
Right.
the targeted date that we have to be completed. But to be successful with the completion date, we have to turn it into the Secretary of State's office probably around January of 2021.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we have holidays right before that, so we got to get started now.
Yeah, I'll be hopefully working very closely with you on
Good.
that.
We're looking forward to it,
Thank you, man.
if we're chosen.
Mr. Harding.
Yes. Carl Harding, Councilman District 2. I have the same sentiments of Mr. Navy, and perhaps, there may be some politics involved with this because, in your juggling of the districts, moving around votes and stuff like that, some people may be affected. And I had a particular interest in reference to District 1 and District 2, which having percentages of voters, roughly 51% to 49, 48, with circumstances with the other parts of the votes, the others. You got white, black, and others. And I've actually looked at the fact that when the others and the whites in the district of 1 and 2, they actually come within more than within a 3 to 6% margin of error, so to speak, then it creates less of an opportunity because I think District 3 also has a 69% as their representation, and most others are higher than 69%. So therefore, in us doing this, I think some people will have to give up some votes. Some people might not like the fact that, how you actually going to draw your lines. I think me and Ms. Doman's, we share half of a street, and we come back one street, and then we go down another street, and one side is her voters, and the other side is mine. So I think we can get out of that and be more defined and where our areas are also, because I'm still trying to find out all my people and where they are. So hopefully we can work out a plan.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Amity.
Along with what Mr. Harding was saying, we share some areas too in order to get the minority districts. I know it's going to be challenging. We spoke a little bit about that in the past as well, but if you guys are selected, are you going to be able to start some preliminary work, maybe with current data that you have over the past couple of years, or is this going to be waiting for the census to come and then slamming it?
No, your first intuition is what we're hoping to do. We want to meet with you early so that we can get you wants and your desires, to talk about the areas of dislikes, to talk about the problem areas, so that we're aware of that. So in the last minute, when the census comes out in July, we don't want to be holding these kinds of individual meetings, in a month's time. It's just impossible to meet with you guys all in that one little bitty period, and the school board. So we want to try to devise where we believe our efforts are going to be focused on. And I think if we do that now, the majority of the work will already have been done by the time the census comes out.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Michelle. Hang on.
How you doing?
Suzette. It's not let me turn on his oh, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. All right. Wait. Okay.
They're trying to tell me something. Thank you for being here, Kevin.
You're welcome.
So I have a simplistic question. This isn't the first time that I go through this as a council person. How are you going to meet with us individually? How are we going to do that? Are we going to hold some sort of a public meeting, or what's going to happen?
Both. We're going to meet with you individually, then we're going to have public meetings. We're going to work through a steering committee made up of 4 councilmen, 4 school board members, and we will be reporting back those, recommendations and progress to both the full council and full school board. And at some point, we will have to have public hearings on them. All of our meetings, except for the individual meetings, will be public.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Dirk Gidry.
Yeah, Kevin, this does not only have to do with the council and the school board, but it has also to do with the state representatives elections and senate elections.
Well, we have to comply with their district boundaries. So they create their own redistricting, and then we have to follow the boundaries by which they create. They trump us.
Okay, so that'll be done by the state.
That is correct. So that's why we're required to give to the to the Secretary of State's office, so that they can correlate those boundaries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dove, I'm sorry I went over 2 minutes.
See no further lights, Kevin. I think you've answered everybody's questions, and looking forward to get this done.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have a presentation by Sheriff Tim Saunier regarding the place of traffic control cameras in school zones.
Well, good evening, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Well, thank y'all for giving us a little bit of time. I had spoke to some of the council members earlier on during watching school zones and everything else, dealing with safety, and this is geared towards public safety. We actually looked at a company that's we're looking at putting speed cameras in the school zones. So we got a study conducted, and our numbers in our parish of speeders in school zones. And when you look back in February, there was a crossing guard that got killed in Lafourche. I certainly don't want that to happen to us, and I certainly don't want a child getting hit crossing the school zone. I can tell you I was impacted in the seventh grade, when a friend of mine got killed crossing a school zone. I watched it. Never left my mind, but more importantly, I think we can do a little bit better job as far as getting people to slow down. So we actually put a company that actually conducted a study, and he's prepared to present. Mr. Hutchins can be prepared to present for some of the numbers so we can propose. And now, keep in mind, this is not no cost on the taxpayer, so that's a relief. So that's a good thing. But more importantly, concentrating on safety of keeping people slowing down in these school zones, I think it's important. I've talked to District Attorney Joe Waits. We discussed it. He's all on board with it, and I think he'll address a little bit now. But more importantly, to get to the presentation, I have the gentleman, Mr. Hutchinson, is actually going to do the presentation for you, so you can get a chance to look at the numbers on how much speeding is going in our school zones. And I think we can do a better job in some of their numbers and reducing the speeding. I think it's going to be a lot safer for our children. And to me, one of my personal things is keeping our children safe in these schools. And school zones is not excluded from that. Without further ado, Mr. Joe might want to say a few words, and we'll get on with the presentation. But thank you all very much for having us.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Parish President. I'm very on board with this program. As the Sheriff has said, we have a serious problem when you see the presentation in a few moments about the number of speeders that have go through our school zones every day. Some of our schools are on highways and are 50 and 60-mile-an-hour zones, and people are not slowing down for them. Speeding in our school zone is one of my pet peeves, and I think it's something that we need to be addressed. I think that the sheriff, this is a great thing. I'm 100% on board to assist in actually handling this and doing it as a team with the sheriff. So you will see it's pretty self-explanatory from the presentation, but I thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Waits. And Mr. Hutchinson, would you please state your name and address, please?
All right, Mr. Mark Hutchins will handle from here.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. My name is Mark Hutchinson, and I'm sure as soon as I open my mouth, you can tell I'm not from around here. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, 4935 Bal Harbor Drive, Chattanooga. The name of my company is Blue Line Solutions, and we are based out of Chattanooga. My background is in law enforcement. I did 16 years in law enforcement, served as a deputy sheriff, a chief deputy, commander of traffic unit, law enforcement liaison with the governor's office in Tennessee, law enforcement coordinator for the governor's office in Georgia, and then back to the governor's office in Tennessee as a law enforcement administrator. Much of my time throughout my career, if I wasn't in administration, was in traffic-related activities. And in my years of service, I picked up a lot of dead bodies, as any police officer, paramedic, or firefighter has, from car crashes. And that became a lifelong passion of mine that has now been focused pretty much exclusively in school zones. I started this company in 2010, and we brought this technology to Louisiana, which is a LiDAR, as you might know it, it's laser-based technology. So you know how accurate a laser is, and that's the technology that we're talking about. But as the sheriff mentioned a minute ago, we conducted a number of speed studies in some school zones in Terrebonne Parish, and we have some of the data here for you this evening. And again, I'm from Tennessee, and I cannot pronounce some of these, the names of these schools, so you'll just have to pardon me, and I beg your forgiveness. So to start with some of the data, as you see on the screen behind you, these studies were all done in 5-day increments, and they were only conducted during the school day. In other words, in the morning while the lights were flashing, when the speed is lower, say 25 miles an hour, then through the day when the lights go off, the speed limit goes up, as you know, and then in the afternoon when the lights come on, the speed limit goes back down. So these speed studies are separated into those three categories. The first one on Bayou Black Drive, you'll notice there at the bottom of this first sheet that there was 9,901 vehicles that came through. A speeder in these studies is identified as a vehicle going 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. So all of these vehicles were going 10 miles an hour or over the speed limit. 4,279 out of 9,000. I think any parent would say that that's an alarming rate when you consider that's getting in the over the 40 percentile. You can see that 78.59% of those were in the morning during the flashing lights, and 86.89% of those were also, of the vehicles in the afternoon were also speeding. I'm going to move on next to Bayou DeLarge. In that school zone, there was 12,074 vehicles passing through in the 5-day period. 4,644 were speeding above 10 miles an hour above the speed zone, the speed limit. The next one is on Coteau Road. Pardon me if I say this wrong. There was, I heard somebody laugh. I think I butchered it already. Sorry. I'll just say up there. In this study, there was 21,039 vehicles came through. 9,037 were going 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. Again, pretty alarming. The next one is a Grand, same word, road that I butchered a second ago. 30,989 vehicles. This one wasn't quite as bad with 2,182 vehicles, but still, as at a low percentage, you think about a 4-week period, that's 8,000 vehicles driving through that school zone at 10 and above the speed limit. The next one, Grand, how do you pronounce that? Caillou. He told me that before I came up here. Grand Caillou Road. This one has 3,858 violations in a 5-day period. Louisiana 24, 29,772 vehicles, 12,710. That's almost 50,000 cars in a month's period are going over 10 miles an hour. I'm sorry. Evergreen. Highway 50, Louisiana 56. This one had 14,442. Speeders were 3,959. Got just a couple more here. Louisiana 56 again. This was Little Caillou. I'm sorry. Elementary school. I can say elementary. 19,090 vehicles, 5,913 violations. And South Hollywood, 2,309 violations out of 21,704. On West Main Street, which would be HL, Bourgeois. 36,955 and an astounding 11,905 speeders above 10 miles an hour above the speed limit. And this last one kind of takes the cake on St. Bridget School, West Main Street. 51,988 vehicles, 21,312 violations above the 10 mile an hour speed limit. So I think everybody here would agree that there's a pretty significant problem. And as the sheriff said, he dealt with it in his life. I've dealt with it in mine, both personally and professionally. And this is what we're trying to stop. So very quickly, the way that our program works is there is no cost to the community for this program at all. We first start with a very robust public information and education program, which means that we will send information through the school system to the parents, through the kids, through their Facebook, and through their email system to the parents. Of course, that's assuming that we get the cooperation of the school system. And but send information about this data to the parents and say, this is the reason why this program is so important. Likewise, we want to send information to the community through press releases, through the sheriff's department, through our sheriff's office, I'm sorry, sir, and through the Facebook of the sheriff's office as well, again, highlighting the data and the problem, and again, the purpose for the program. The purpose for the program is to slow people down. It's to change adult driving behavior. We've been doing this for quite a number of years, and I can tell you that we can expect somewhere between a 50 and 76% in reduction of speeds on any one of these given roads through our program. A very quick example of one is one in south of Atlanta. It's a suburb of Atlanta. They had 2,250 violations in their 5-day pre-study. During the 30-day warning period, which is right after the public information education, the program starts with a warning period for 30 days where people get tickets in the mail, but they say warning. That 2,250 violations dropped to 1,100 without writing the first violation. And then after the enforcement period started, it dropped to 477. The COVID closed the schools down. They came back, the number spiked again because people didn't, had forgotten. And as of this week, it's down to about 350. So we went from a problem of 2,200 violations in a week to 350. That's the purpose of the program. That's what's going to happen in each one of these programs. We do quarterly speed studies, and we continue this process to be able to share with you the data so that you can see that the program is working along a long period of time. The last thing that I will say is the threshold, and what I mean by threshold is the amount of speed that is given above the speed limit is set by the sheriff's office. So it won't be at 1 mile an hour over, 2 miles an hour over, but there will be a threshold that is set above, and to give people an advantage. And you've seen the radar signs that you drive toward and they show their speed, right? Well, we're going to give the parish one of those for every school camera that we put in. So the state requires that there be a photo enforcement sign prior to the school zone. Then we suggest that you put this radar sign next so the person sees how fast they're going. Then they come to the flashing signs with the 25 miles an hour. That's 3 warnings that they've had before they enter the school zone. Again, we're focused on safety. If we were focused on anything else, we certainly wouldn't want to put those radar signs there and tell people how fast they're going. So that's just a little bit about our program, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
We have several lights. Mr. Navy.
Yes, and I really love the technology, and I read some information when we took the brochures home. One of the things I do understand by working in school, I actually work at a high school, and I do understand that it's a very dangerous situation. You have a lot of speeders. Now, we're putting my dual hat on as far as being a councilman. I've gotten more calls in the 9 years as a councilman from Grand Caillou Road in reference to the speeding out there by that school, and also Dularge, because I represent both areas. So you're absolutely correct. That is some crazy areas out there where they just won't stop speeding. So Sheriff, I know Sheriff Tim Sawyer still here. Sheriff, thank you for being proactive. And my brother Joe Waits out there, supporting you on that. Thank you for being very proactive with this, because really something needs to be done. I mean, because it's crazy, and I agree with you that someone is going to get hurt because they just have no regards for human life out there speeding around the school zone. So I love the technology. Thank you all for being proactive with it, and I think it's a win-win situation. So thank you for keeping our community safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yes, thank you for coming. I do think technology is going to be very important as we move forward. Speeding is a major issue throughout the district, school zones, and all over. I've been dubbed the king of the electronic speed limit signs because I took a trip to Shreveport, and and or actually Seattle, and I saw these electronic speed limit signs, and came back to Mr. Dove and said, this is something we need to try. We tried a few of them out, they worked great, so we've put them up, but they serve one purpose, to let you know, and it keeps the honest people honest. But there's always going to be somebody who tries to see exactly how high they can get the number to go.
That's right.
But I am in favor of looking at this. I wouldn't want to see this go to like traffic red lights, because I've experienced those in Lafayette, and had the opposite, to where tickets were given that were erroneous, and you got to prove that that's a nightmare. So, but this I think would be very important. One question I have of you is you mentioned the flashing signs.
Yes, sir.
And that's something that you guys would provide, the flashing part, as you get toward not the electronic speed limit signs, but as you get toward the end, you get the flashing yellow signs.
Some of your school zones, have them today, and I understand some of them don't. For those that don't, that's something that we would provide. We've done that in other school districts.
Now, if you provide those signs, though, they're dumb signs. You just set them at times. That's not something that can be programmable.
Well, the ones today can be programmable to flash at certain times, right? To come on, say, at 6:40 and to go off at 7:40, based on the school's time and when those should be flashing. We don't suggest that we have any control over them. We're just basically donating them as part of the program, because a lot of the school zones may not be placard at all, or they may have been ran over at some point and not be replaced, or the flashing lights may have, one of them may be burned out. As you know, we are focused on safety, and we feel like it makes sense to the program if there's not adequate warning out there, that we help put that in place. So the systems that can be donated to the parish as part of this program can be programmed remotely. So whether it's Public Works or the school system, I'm not sure who would program those as they do today, but they could do so and continue to do so. We could provide solar units, so it requires minimal electrical hookup and things of that nature.
Well, the main reason I'm asking is I saw you did one on Hollywood Road. I imagine that was in front of Vanderbilt Catholic.
Yes, it was.
However, the biggest problems we have are on Tunnel Boulevard with Vanderbilt Catholic, where they have a flashing sign.
Right.
And Vanderbilt doesn't always keep the school board's time. So oftentimes they're getting off a half a day. And so the lights might be flashing, might not be flashing. So people have gotten to where often in Tunnel Boulevard, unless there's a bunch of cars in line, they say, oh, there's no school. They ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that case, I don't know what we would do. They would be flashing. We give them tickets when they're not supposed to be getting tickets because the flashing's going on, but school's not. Those are things that would have to be worked out, no doubt. But that is something a question that I would be asking if we move this thing farther, is how we can make sure in those particular times when there's not school going on. I mean, are we just going to say during these times school or not?
No. We internally, we have very strict guidelines on how we run our part of the program, and our company will not get into any gray area at all. We're either black or white, right? And if the flashers are supposed to be flashing at a certain time, we get with whoever is supposed to program those. They give us the scheduled time that they're supposed to be programmed. We document a similar schedule for the cameras to be programmed. We send that back for approval. And usually during this process, if there are issues, they start to arise, and irregularities, and then they start to be worked out. Because the last thing that we want to do is to do anybody wrong in any way.
And that's something too, Mr. Toops, maybe we need to look at if we move forward with this. I don't know if there is a smart light. It seems like you could program it through the year based on like a calendar, and have it flash at certain times. On the certain days they're supposed to have half days, it flashes perhaps at the noon hour when they're getting out, at, the different times for those particular things. I don't know if that's possible. It seems like it would be out there, but that is a complaint I get a lot about flashing when it's not supposed to be flashing.
If you could imagine during COVID, a lot of school schedules have been altered, right? And those flashers were changed to some run all day, some to run different times. And we have complied with all of those in all the school zones that we, and not only do we comply, we stay on top of it because it's very important to us.
Thank you. I know we have a bunch of lights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Babin?
Yeah, when Sheriff Sonia called me about this one night, right off the bat, I said yes, and can HPD piggyback off of this as well? Because, I mean, we have the city and the sheriff's department. When I was fortunate enough to see this presentation before with Steve Trosclair and I at the sheriff's office, I was amazed at these numbers. But I was disappointed in the numbers more than amazed. The number of people that are just violating the law, and this is 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. That's unbelievable to think that that's happening. But also in the presentation, and our first and main focus is the safety of the children. But Terry Day even brought up there'll be times in this where license plates will be taken because somebody's speeding in that school zone, and that may be a drug dealer from out of state. So there will be some unintentional good consequences that we can get out of this, as well as the primary thing, which is the safety.
That is correct.
I look forward to this happening here in Terrebonne Parish.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Michel?
Okay, thank you for coming and explaining this. I have a couple questions. One is all of your data is based upon schools that are on state highways, that are on highly traveled highways. Are we going to do anything with the school zones that are located in residential areas?
That the initial data on these that I just gave you was a list that the sheriff had given us to just kind of look at the data and see if there was a problem in the community. So I think the plan moving forward would be to do these type of studies in all the school zones, even the ones in the residential areas. We may find that a lot of those don't have problems, maybe because of stop signs every block or speed humps or whatever, but the data doesn't lie. So, it'll paint the picture for us and help you to make a decision on where they need to be placed.
To my recollection, and I might be wrong about this, maybe Ms. Domingue might know, but the three elementary schools in my district are Lisa Park, Oakshire, and Broadmoor. And they have 15-mile-an-hour speed limits on the blocks approaching the schools. That is 24 hours a day, I believe. I don't think it's just, it's not just at school zone times. And part of the reason for that is because they're adjacent parks and play areas. And so, and really more of the speeding, I would guess, goes on when people are getting off of work. And because in these three particular schools, there are always lines of traffic of dropping off and picking up kids. And so that slows the traffic down at the school zone times.
Right.
However, it's needed, all day,
Throughout the day.
especially when those cars are not there. So I hope that we can look at that. And then I see Sheriff Sonia is saying that yes, but that would be a huge thing, and maybe we won't have to spend the money on the speed humps for those particular areas.
Absolutely.
But thank y'all for being here. Thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Domingue?
Yes, sir, and thank you for the presentation. As a mother of two small elementary school children, I think this is absolutely important and vital. In the school that we're at, we have several families who actually walk to school, and so slowing down the traffic for them especially, I think, is very important. And I want to thank Sheriff Saunier also for being proactive on this issue and thinking that this is so important for our children. We've talked a lot about speeding. This council has, and we actually implemented a speed hump program to start slowing people down. And I think that the entire parish, and I've said this before, we all need to slow down. We sit in car line and we sit and we wait to drop our children off, and you still have people zooming past you or cutting the stop sign or we had a accident in front of our school a few days ago because they just can't slow down even though there's a school zone right there. And so I think this would be very beneficial. Now, one question though is did you look into public and private schools, or is this just for public schools?
No, it certainly can be done in private schools as well.
So you're going to work with the diocese as well as the school board?
We would like to do that.
Okay, all right, thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I was at the meeting with you guys and the sheriff when you first did the first presentation, and you did mention that you guys were putting all this equipment in at no cost to the parish. And I stepped out for a minute. I apologize if you've already mentioned it, but you'll also handle all the maintenance on it, right?
Yes, sir.
All the maintenance and upkeep on it, and all the collections.
Yes, sir.
And so this will not cost the parish a single penny. The sheriff's office, all parish government.
That's correct.
So, I mean, it's a great program. And also, to answer some of you guys' questions, the sheriff did mention his goal is to have one of these cameras at every school in the parish, whether they're private, parochial, public, or if they're in a subdivision or on the main highway. So that's the ultimate goal that the sheriff mentioned at the meeting. So I think it's a great program, and we definitely move. I would like to see it move forward, and have another like Ms. Tomberly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. Sheriff Sonia, thank you for bringing this to us. We're trying to get very proactive in the things that we do. Now, Coteau, Bayou Blue School, Evergreen Junior High School, H.L. Bourgeois High School, and St. Bridget, that's going to be the Schriever School, are all in my district.
Wow.
So I thank you guys for picking those. And is there any way we can get our hands on that data so when people complain, we can say, look, guys, you tell me, because we see it all the time.
Absolutely.
I lost a friend crossing at Evergreen Junior High, was run over by a car when we were in school there. If the car was doing 25 or less, they could have been able to stop.
Right.
But because they weren't, he tripped on his shoestring, and they ran him over. So, again, thank you guys. And we can't say it enough to the people. The only people that are going to pay for this are the ones that are speeding, and they're going to have 3 warnings to be able to slow down.
Right.
I do a lot of work in New Orleans, and I watched the traffic cameras there at the school zones, and it works. Like you said, those numbers in South Atlanta came down. We'll see the same thing here. So, I mean, like the rest of my members up here, and I'm all behind it. Like Darren says, I'm not really a fan of red light cameras and speed cameras on the highways, but for the kids, absolutely. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Navy.
Yeah, and great. We stand behind this 100% on this council. So what do we need to do the next process? Because I want to move forward with making sure that you all have everything that you all need and support from us, whatever resources you need. I don't know if it needs to be in some form of a motion or whatever needs to be done, but what needs to happen now to make sure that we get the ball rolling with this process?
I think we probably need to make a motion tonight to move this thing forward, and then let administration come back with the resolution or an ordinance.
I make that motion then, because it needs to happen.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. John Navy, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind remarks, and y'all stay safe.
All right, Mr.
Thank you,
Hutchinson.
Sheriff. Appreciate you.
And I think the sheriff wants to say one more thing. And Joe, thank you for being on board with this too.
On the contract, and we're going to handle it, we're going to manage the majority of it, and that's all school zones. Eventually, when we initially did the study, it was on the main highways. We are going to go visit, and we're going to continue to do studies within the school zones in the residential areas, such as Mr. Michel's area and some of y'all other ones. This is not about, I'm not interested in red lights. I'm interested in slowing people down in the school zones for our children. That's my priority, and that's where we're going with it. The next thing, we are preparing, looking at working with them, working with other parts of the state and counties of getting an ordinance prepared that we can probably get together and make and put together a good ordinance so we can move this thing forward. And I'm hoping probably January before next school year, we're going to start seeing cameras in some of the parish roads and some of the state roads. This company does handle all DOT permits, so it's a good thing. As far as the state roads, they handle all of that, but parish roads, once we get this ordinance pushed through, we'll start getting them in some of the parish roads where some of our schools are to start getting people prepared to slow down.
So from the parish, Tim, you need basically for us, we're gonna need to allow servitude right-of-ways on parish properties and stuff. That's about the only thing you're gonna need from us.
Yes, and but like I said, I'll go ahead and get the ordinance prepared. We're gonna prepare the ordinance and get it so for y'all to take a view, so we can get this ball rolling. I'm not here gonna wait. I'm gonna get it going, and we're gonna get this ball rolling.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And I'm ready
Looking
to get
forward to it. Wait, I have one more, Ms. Domingue.
Hi, Sheriff. Just a quick question. Are we gonna, or well, not we, are you going to notify principals so that they can notify
Yes.
parents that this is happening?
I've talked to Mr. Philip Martin. He's all on board. Matter of fact, he's pretty excited about it.
Okay.
And like I said, all public and private schools, nobody's going to be left behind in the parish. We're looking at everybody's safety, and that's going to be my priority, making sure we do that. So we're going to handle that in, and we appreciate y'all time, but I think it was important for y'all to know where we're at, and I think we can move forward and do good things for our parish.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. And I just want to let you know that I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. And I'm getting ready for the blizzard in December.
Mr.
Other than that, that's all we got left.
And Sheriff, please don't forget Mahoma Christian School on Valley.
Hold up.
We've already talked about that as well.
I think the DA wants to speak before.
I just wanted to raise one important point because everyone has mentioned red light cameras and things, and I'm not really a red light camera fan, but we have set up and we have maintained discretion here in Terrebonne to address the issues that someone made. That was absolutely not me. These controversial issues, we have maintained discretion and control here in Terrebonne, set up a review process so we can be fair. This is about stopping a problem and being fair. So I just wanted you all to know that.
Thank you. Sorry, Darren, go ahead.
That's okay. And Sheriff, you were commenting about Homa Christian, which is actually an HPD.
That's on Val High. We're discussing that, where we're gonna put cameras. We plan on putting cameras through all of that and everything. We're just trying to slow people down throughout the parish. And I mean, as the chief law enforcement officer, as public safety throughout our whole parish, and we're just gonna get that taken care of so we can take care of our whole community.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give me a minute, Mr. Michelle. I gotta get this light down again. Okay, Mr. Michelle.
Okay, and one final note is, along that Highway 24 corridor with HL and Evergreen and St. Bridget that y'all were talking about, probably the vast majority of those people are not people who are associated with the schools. They're just going somewhere, and half the time it's absent-mindedness that causes it. So hopefully these warnings are going to help them with that, but also, when we start to publicize it, whatever we can do to help spread the word on Facebook and, whatever good the Courier does, whatever good HTV does, I mean, we need to try to let everyone know and not just the people of the schools.
There's definitely going to be a conditioning, be it via signs, articles put out in the paper, education for the students, the teachers, everybody. It's a full-blown educational thing where we're starting to condition people to be aware you're in the school zone, you need to pay attention. I mean, we got so many distractions now between cell phones and everything else. And, we need to start conditioning, especially in these areas, for the children and everybody involved. And, we put crossing guards out in a lot of these areas. And Lafourche had it, and we might be talking about the same one at Evergreen back in the 70s. I was in that class, and I know it. I remember because he was in my class, and I'll never forget it. And I never forgot it. But you know what? It's a horrible feeling when you see one of your fellow students get run over. But it's a personal thing. But more importantly, this is about children, and that's through all. And I mean, even the younger children that's going to and from school, it's going to help them to be a little conscious as well, become an educational thing.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Appreciate y'all time.
Motion to go into 6:30 public hearing.
Motion to go public hearing, Mr. Darren Guidry, second, Mr. Danny Babin, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item A is an ordinance to authorize the acquisition of property, sites, and/or servitudes required for the BioLaCorp drainage improvements. Phase C, Parish Project Number 01-DRA-11. Authorize the parish president to execute any and all documents necessary to acquire sites, property, and/or servitudes for the said purposes, to provide for other matters relative thereto. Public once, public twice, public three times. Motion closed, Mr. Darren Guidry, second, Mr. Cole Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Harding. Second, Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item B is an ordinance to authorize the parish president to execute an amendment of the lease agreement for Terrebonne Parish Tennis Complex to extend the current lease for additional 4 years. Public once, public twice, public three times. Motion closed, Mr. Darren Guidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. John Davy. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. And that second was Mr. Harding, not Mr. Navy. Item C is an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget and 5-year capital outlay budget for the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Transit, negative $168,322. Animal shelter donations, $13,648. Emergency Preparedness Department, EMPG, $33,731. CARES Act, $5,927,263. CDBG Ward 7 levy elevation, $202,878. Road Lighting District Number 2, $500,000. Turning lanes federal stimulus, negative $43,638. Asphalt overlay federal stimulus, $0. Concrete Section 2 federal stimulus, negative $3,865. Public once, public twice, public three times. Motion closed, Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. John Davy. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. John Davy. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item D, an ordinance to appoint Anthony J. Alfred Corporation as agent producer of record for employee group health insurance, self-funded reinsurance contract for medical, dental, and pharmacy benefits. Public once, public twice, public three times. Motion closed, Mr. Gerald Michelle. Second, Mr. Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Babin, Danny Babin. Second, Mr. Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item E, an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget and the 5-year capital outlay budget of Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the proceeds of the Public Improvement Bond Series 2020A, 2020B, and 2020C. Series 2020 Public Improvement Bonds, $22,184,879. Bond issuance cost, $305,137. Debt Service Reserve Fund, $1,879,742. Public once, public twice, public three times. Motion closed, Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. John Amity. And Ms. Jessica Domingue. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Amity. Second, Ms. Domingue. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, we have Mr. Dove would like to speak.
Council, I was going to give a rundown on all the projects, but it's a little lengthy, so the time being so long here, I'm just going to put it at the next meeting and give everybody a rundown. We'll do that at the next meeting. Most of you already know. I mainly want to tell the public. Y'all already know the project. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dove. Item F, the proposed 2021 budget and the 5-year capital outlay budget. Motion to continue, Mr. Babin. Second, Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to go to regular order, Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. Danny Babin. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. The item 2, staff reports. Consider ratifying President Gordon Dove's recommendation to appoint Gary Williams Jr. as an assistant parish attorney. Move Mr. Dirk Gidry, second Mr. Danny Babin, and I have a light.
Now, Mr. Williams is here. I want to see if you want to come up and say a few things, but
Well, let's vote first, and then we'll let
Okay.
him speak, okay?
Please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. All right, go ahead.
Good
Okay,
evening.
hang on, Mr. Williams, is your light on? I'm not even sure. Yeah, but I gotta take it off, put it back on. So you can have it, okay, there you go.
Good.
Name and address, please.
Gary Williams Jr., 407 Cypress Gardens Drive, Homer, Louisiana, 70364. Just want to thank Parish President Gordy Dove, Mr. Jules Abair, Mr. John Navy. I've been pestering them about come and join. And if you look at my resume, I do work for the Terrebonne Parish DA's office, so my boss was here. Full-time over there, but and I enjoy my job, and I love serving the public. So whatever I can do to help, just let me know. I'm sure Jules will give me a whole bunch of stuff to do. Just one quick thing. When I was in LSU in undergrad, I got a call from somebody, and I don't know who it was, but they said, you want a job? And I'm like, yeah, I'm a broke college student. And Gordy Dove actually was a state rep at that time. So he got me a job, my first official job with the state legislature. So I'm going to be calling him up because he seems like he got me another job too. So, I'm going to keep that number handy. But thank you guys.
And listen, I feel real old up here, man, but it's a pleasure. This is a young man here. Literally, I've been knowing since he was a baby. Me and his dad, who was a state trooper, still is working for the state trooper department, but he's a state trooper for years. And it's just funny that seeing you now as a young man at this capacity, really, I'm proud of you, brother. I really am, And I tell your dad all the time. In fact, I tell Mr. Waits all the time, too, you will be one of the next judges in Terrebonne Parish, okay? But it's just an honor, man, to see you come along with, on this platform here and be a part of the process with us, man. But it brings me so much joy, man. So congratulations, well-deserved, and thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Williams. People like you are what we're looking for. You mentioned it right away. You hounded them. The Bible talks about, persevere, and you persevered and are rewarded for it. So congratulations, and I'm sure they'll have enough for you to do. I'm sure Joe probably doesn't give you much spare time, but
no.
welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And from the chair, welcome aboard, Mr. Williams. Looking forward to working with you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Update on drainage, pump station, and generators and other projects. Mr. Toops is not going to do a presentation tonight, but he'll entertain any questions anybody may have from the council regarding any of the pumps or seeing no further lights, we're going to move on. Item 3 is the public wishing to address the council. Have a couple of speaker cards. Mr. Charles Gibson. He wants to speak on Crescent Construction Group doing business in Terrebonne Parish. Just hold tight for 1 second. Let me reset this light. And set your name and address for the record, please.
Charles Gibson, 1528 Westminster Boulevard, Monroe, Louisiana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As I stated, my name is Charles Gibson, and I am the managing partner for a Louisiana state contractors, Crescent Construction Group. We have a presence in Jefferson, Orleans, and Calcasieu Parish, and we're looking to do business, expand our operation, do business in Terrebonne Parish. A little about myself. I was born in Louisiana, down the road in Pankerville. I don't know if you guys heard of that. And educated Louisiana, graduated from Xavier University, got my master's in computer science from University of Rochester, MBA from University of Rochester. Came back to Louisiana and was the first, in Jefferson Parish, we had the first GIS SCADA department in the United States. I was the director in the late '80s. So I worked in parish government for a time, left that and became a congressional aide to U.S. Senator David Vitter. So I've been here to your parish a bunch of times with Senator Vitter. Started a company called Crescent Shoring. We was the third largest shoring company in the state. We did a lot of work on Grand Bayou Road. We elevated a lot of houses with Patterson Corporation in the early 2000s, and started this company. And like I said, we have a presence in Orleans, Jefferson, and Calcasieu Parish, just looking to expand our business. That's about it.
Okay, Ms. Domingue. I'm sorry, Mr. Harding.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Gibson, we had a conversation, and the conversation was basically in reference to him expanding himself, me being a representative in Terrebonne Parish, and the people that I represent. And basically, sometimes if you look at a monopoly game, the roll of the dice sometimes dictate your fortune or your misfortune. And I've actually sat on this board and I've seen some names that I actually come across. Not to pass judgment on anyone else, but then, understanding the leveling of the playing field and giving opportunities to everyone. I've seen some contractors within this parish, and sometimes I wonder where's their employment pool, because it was some work recently done in my neighborhood, and I didn't see anyone that I actually knew from my neighborhood that actually was working within that crew. But still, and then the conversation that we had, I said, well, it's a great opportunity for a person of your flavor to actually come in and give them an opportunity to not only expand your business, but then give opportunity to some people that may not have the same opportunity in other areas, and other opportunities that be presented to them that are not presented to anyone else, which create a better opportunity for them to provide for their families, lower crime rates and stuff like that, and tax base, and actually improve the environment. So I think the level playing field that we're going to actually have here, and I'm looking forward to doing business with you. I think you're a great friend of mine. A lot of times people say, well, hey, look, I know this guy, I know that guy, you know what I mean? It's not who you know. It's just the fact that, to say this to you, hope that you bring a qualified business here, and to those people that are out there that within my district that are looking for jobs, and other districts that are looking for jobs, you can actually employ some of these people, because a lot of these people are looking for jobs. So hopefully Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government can employ you, where you can employ others, where we can actually make advancement, improve our tax base, and better our community.
That's the way we like to have it, a marriage made where government, private sector, as well as the citizens come together to do a thing. Like I said, we are Louisiana licensed commercial as well as residential contractor.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned Pankerville. I was born in Napoleonville. Dr. Cox delivered me back in 1963, so I know what you're talking about. Lived there until I was about 7 years old, and then my dad transferred here. To work, what I would recommend, one, get to know some of the engineers and architects in the area, possibly the Chamber of Commerce. You can get a lot of contacts working through them. And then Mr. Toops, for the parish, for him to get any information on the jobs that are being released that you're seeking proposals, who would he contact for that?
Mr. Toops.
Councilman Amity, it would be best that he contact Miss Angela Guidry, our purchasing agent. She can give him all the information to get on our approved vendor list. That would be the first step. And then once we know the particulars of what he offers, we can also invite him to like any pre-bid meetings so that he can meet the contractors that are going to be bidding, and he can give out his business card to them, and then they in turn could solicit bids from him as a subcontractor. But I would start with Miss Angela Guidry in our purchasing department.
Hope that helps you out, Mr. Gibson, and
It
thank you
does.
for coming by.
It does. Thank you.
Mr. Harding. I'm sorry, thought I did.
Yeah, and there are other avenues, just as we had conversations, and I'm gonna let anybody else know that, the opportunity presents itself to all people. There's a Terrebonne Economic Development here, and they have seminars. They actually, their purpose, one of their purposes is to actually advance entrepreneurship, Chamber of Commerce, this is not just the local government, the government entity here, but then there are other sources that we actually are associated with, and we provide services also to actually enhance the opportunity for people within the entrepreneurship and create opportunities for everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
All right, moving on. Public Service Committee, 11, 16, 20, Mr. Harding. Hold on, let me get your light. Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Public Service Committee meeting held on November 16, 2020, which has one public hearing to deprecate the vegetation and mosquito operation of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government by moving the responsibility of vegetation control to the Department of Solid, Hazard, and Recycling Waste, and the responsibility of mosquito control to the Division of Drainage, Roads, and Bridges under the Public Works Department to amend Section 2-82 to accomplish this goal, to amend Section 14.2-26 to define the term vegetation, to amend Section 13-42 to redefine the term enforcement officer for the purpose of consistent with the amendment herein, and to provide for all related matters, and to call for a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion by Mr. Harding, second Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Community Development and Planning Committee, Ms. Domingue.
I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Community Development and Planning Committee meeting held on November 16th, 2020, which calls for no public hearings.
Motion by Ms. Domingue, second Mr. Darren Gidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee, Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee meeting held on November 16, 2020, which calls 3 public hearings. Number 1 is to appoint the Leday Corporation DBA Leday Insurance as agent producer of record for boiler and machinery coverage and fireman's insurance coverage, and call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Number 2 is to appoint Larice Insurance Agency LLC as agent producer of record for casualty insurance coverage, and call a public hearing on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. And number 3 is to introduce an ordinance in accordance with Section 2-11 of the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances to waive parking meter fees for Coast Guard personnel, to grant authority to Terrebonne Parish President Gordon E. Dove to issue parking permits to Coast Guard personnel near the Allender building, as more fully described herein, to amend Section 18-289 to provide for a parking meter exemption for United States Coast Guard Marine Safety Unit personnel in certain parking spaces along Lafayette and Greenwich Streets, and to enact Section 2-453 of the Terrebonne Parish Code to allow parking at the Robert J. Bobby Bergeron parking garage for certain entities in furtherance of Public Safety and to call a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion, Mr. Amity. Second, Mr. Babin, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Budget and Finance, Mr. Navy. Hold on, Mr. Navy. And before we get started, I want to let everybody know that I overlooked the speaker card. So as soon as Mr. Navy finishes with his committee report, we're gonna go back into committee to public hearing, and we'll get you Mr. Stufley. And I apologize, Mr. Navy.
I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting held on November the 16th, 2020, which calls for 4 public hearings. Introduce an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget and the 5-year capital outlay budget of Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. CARES Act, $32,889. CSBG CARES Act, $565,688. Local Government Assistance, 0. Louisiana Highway Safety Commission Grant, HPD, $61,532. Home Fire Department, $1,500. Civic Center, $9,000. Customer Service, $2,283. Office of Emergency Preparedness, $2,000. Elliott Jones Pump Station, $10 million. Health Unit Construction Fund, $4 million. Jail Plumbing Project, $175,000. Calling the public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Also, introduce an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. 5% budget adjustment for Criminal Court Fund, $114,617. 5% budget adjustment for Road Lighting District 4, $12,731. 5% budget adjustment for Road Lighting District number 7, $15,845. 5% budget adjustment for Road Lighting District number 9, $15,117. 5% budget adjustment for Road Lighting District number 10, $3,718. 5% budget adjustment for Public Safety Fund, $862,131. 5% budget adjustment for non-district recreation, $13,200 in calling the public hearing on said matter Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Also, to introduce an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget for the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. CARES Act, $13,036,752. FEMA reimbursement, $1,811,831. And calling the public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Also, to introduce an ordinance to adopt the 2021 operational and maintenance budget of the 5-year capital improvement budget of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government as presented by the parish president and further amended by the Terrebonne Parish Council to amend the parish compensation plan for new and or adjusted positions to address other related matters thereto and call a public hearing on said matters on Wednesday, December the 9th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion by Mr. John Davis, second Mr. Darren Guidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries.
Motion to readdress public wishing to address the council.
Motion to readdress public. Mr. Darren Guidry, second Mr. Amity, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Mr. Stufley, and then once again, I do apologize for making you stay longer than you should have. State your name and address, please.
Thank you. Ronald Stufley, 311 Midland Drive, Houma, Louisiana. I'm here in reference to the Comcast cable issue that I presented at the last council meeting. That issue is Comcast's position that it is able to charge an early contract termination fee when a contracted customer moves into an area not serviced by Comcast. A Comcast representative was supposed to be here and on the agenda to present Comcast's position relative to this issue. He's not here, and he's not on the agenda. and that's because he has determined the case is closed. I'm sure he would much rather consider the case closed than to stand here before you guys and try to justify why Comcast considers it appropriate to charge a fee for terminating a service that they cannot provide. I, on the other hand, do come and stand before you to say that, in my opinion, that case is not closed, and it would not be closed until Comcast removes that stipulation from their contract. Now, I've gone as far as I can go. The rest is up to you. If you, as franchise authority, consider that position to be appropriate, then yeah, I guess the case is closed. If you decide to contest it, don't let Comcast hide behind the Cable Television Consumer Protection and Competition Act of 1992. That act does not protect them from your authority over their business practices. And I said that I had gone as far as I can go, but no, I have another option. When my contract has expired, I will no longer be a Comcast customer if they continue with that procedure. That's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a light. Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, Mr. Stufley, thank you for coming back again. And, I have, from what I understand, Comcast was really not interested in taking up a hypothetical, and which is in essence what we're having. And it chooses to take care of them on a case-by-case basis. And I understand what you're saying is residents shouldn't have to fight if they move from one part of Terrebonne to another. And what would be our next step is to contact probably the Public Service Commission, who I think regulates cable TV services directly. I'm not sure. But I am, now that I know that this is not resolved, we will check into it and see if indeed we are understanding Comcast's position to be that they are not willing to consider making any changes to their contracts. We will find out to make sure that that is indeed their position, or if he wants to come next meeting. If the Comcast rep chooses that he wants to come to our next meeting, I or somebody will reach out to you and let you know that he will be coming.
Okay.
But I will take the next step for you.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
I don't think a case-by-case position is the right way to go with this. I think the whole thing needs to be removed, because any of you have Comcast and you call to talk to a representative, well, you're going to talk to one person out of I don't know how many. And if the one person you talk to is concerned and caring, then they may say, yeah, okay, well, we're going to waive that fee. And if there's some other, God knows who says, nah, when you move to a new area, you need to forget about convenience and schools. You need to consider where Comcast services you. Well, that's ridiculous. And so, my fervor is gaining on me here. I apologize, but I think it's a ridiculous. And yeah, that's fine. Get somebody to come over here and they can justify that for you. I'd love to be here and hear that.
Thank you. Mr. Michel.
Okay, I'm waiting. If he's finished, I have a couple things to say.
Okay, you've done, Mr.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, if that's the way the contracts read, I don't view it as a hypothetical. That's the way the contracts read. It might be a hypothetical person who it might affect, but if that's the way the contract reads, then I find that to be a problem. And if the parish is the authority over how their contracts are written, then I certainly think we need to address it. And I'm not quite sure the difference between what the parish's authority is and what the public service commissioner's authority is. But I think it's an unreasonable clause in a contract that says that if somebody moves and they're no longer able to provide service for them, that they have to pay a penalty. So let me know if I can help address that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to go back in regular order.
Motion to go regular order, Mr. Darren Gidry, second, Mr. Amity, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 5, street lights. Per Mr. Dirk Gidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Notice of meeting, the Police Jury Association of Louisiana Executive Board meeting, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, December 10th and 11th, 2020. Appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. Rec District Number 5, 2 expiring terms. Mr. Gerald Arsenault and Mr. Kevin Franks expressed their interest in being reappointed. Open, close, and reappoint Mr. Dirk Gidry, second, Mr. Jeremy Sher, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item B, Terrebonne Port Commission, 3 expiring terms, 12/31/20. Mr. Chris Earn and Mr. Charles Yigilio have expressed their interest in being reappointed. Mr. Jared Toops, Mr. Joseph D. Marlbrew Jr., Captain, Paul Bill Purvis, Mr. Joe B. Caldwell, Joseph B. Joe Caldwell, Mr. John DeBlue, and Mr. Al Abear submit an application and resume for consideration. Open, close, and vote, Mr. Michelle. Second, Mr. Amity, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carried. Okay, we're gonna do this kind of slow because there's so many. If you would, when you get called to vote, let me light your lights so your microphone will be on so everybody can hear who you vote for. And we're gonna vote 3 per person, then we'll go from there, okay? Roll call vote, Ms. Margot.
Mr. Amity?
Okay, Ms. Domity?
Mr. Ernie, Captain Purvis, and Mr. W.
Thank you.
Ms. Domingue?
Ms. Domingue? Oh, wrong light.
Mr. Ernie, Mr. Giglio, and Mr. Purvis.
Thank you.
Mr. Darren Gidry?
Mr. Darren?
Yeah, Mr. Ernie, Captain Purvis, and Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you.
Mr. Babin?
Yes, Mr. Ernie, Mr. Giglio, and Mr. W.
Mr. Dirk Gidry?
Hang on, Derek. Okay.
You don't need a microphone to hear me. Mr. Ernie, Mr. Toops, and Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you.
Mr. Charles Clare?
Ernie, Purvis, and Abear.
Mr. Navy?
Marlbrew, Purvis, and the Blue. W.
Mr. Harding?
Hang on, Mr. Harding. Let me get your light. Okay. Oh. Hold on. You took it off. Okay.
Purvis, Caldwell, and the Blue.
Okay.
And Mr. Michelle?
Mr. Ernie, Mr. Giglio, and Mr. Marlbrew.
Mr. Chairman, there are 7 votes for Mr. Ernie, 3 votes for Mr. Giglio, 1 vote for Mr. Toops, 2 votes for Mr. Marlborough, 6 votes for Mr. Purvis, 4 votes for Mr. Caldwell, 3 votes for Mr. DeBlue, and 1 vote for Mr. Abear.
So we got 2 out of 3, so we got to revote.
Of the vote. So you're gonna have to go back and put 2 are elected, you're gonna have to put the other 3
All the
back
rest
in
in it.
and then vote on that.
Right. Okay. So we'll go do a revote. Mr. Chris Ernie and Mr. Purvis have been reappointed or appointed to the board. We got that leaves Giglio, Toops, Marlbrew, Caldwell, DeBlue, and Abear. Roll call vote. And we vote for one.
You're gonna re-vote them all, they all gonna have another chance.
We vote for one.
Giglio, Toops, Marlboro, who else? You said Abe and who else? Mr.?
Abear, DeBlue, and Caldwell, DeBlue, and Abear. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4,
Six.
5, 6 of them.
Okay. Let's go.
Mr. Amity,
Mr. DeBlue,
Ms. Domingue,
Mr. Giglio?
Mr. Darren Gidry,
Mr. Caldwell?
Mr. Babin, Mr. Charles Clare,
Abear,
Mr. Navy,
The blue.
oh, I skipped Dirk, I'm sorry. Okay.
Mr. Caldwell.
Mr. Harding,
The blue.
Mr. Michelle,
I have a majority. You got to vote it again.
How many?
Gotta have a majority. Gotta have 5. No, you don't. You got 4. 4, 2, 2, and 1. Abe had 1, Giggler had 2, Caldwell had 2, and W had 4.
is that what you got? 4 for W?
No. Can't everybody, only way they get knocked out is by votes. Okay, because somebody may change their vote.
So
Gotta
is that
vote it
you
again
and-
until you
you
get a
and Marco have
majority.
the same thing?
Same thing.
We have 2 for Mr. Giglio, 2 for Mr. Caldwell, 1 for Mr. Abear.
Okay. All right, let's try it again.
Mr. Amity,
No, we can go ahead with just one.
Ms. Domingue,
Mr. DeBlue?
Mr. Darren Gidry,
Caldwell?
Mr. Babin, Mr. Dirk Gidry, Mr. Charles Clare,
Abear,
Mr. Navy, Mr. Harding, Mr. Michelle.
7-2. The Blues got it.
Congratulations, Mr. Blue. Do any one of y'all want to address the council? Mr. Ernie, Mr. Purvis, or Mr. DeBlue? W.
Good evening. Thank y'all again. Been on this Port Commission a while. Well, first of all, Chris Ernie, 1600 Chantilly Drive. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's I've been appointed a few times, and I'm actually kind of excited to see that there's a lot of interest in being on this board. This is a very dynamic board. We're very aggressive, and I presume and I assume with the new people on board that we will continue to be so. I know both of these other gentlemen, and I'm sure that they'll do a fine job as well. You know, we've got a lot to do in the future. We've done a lot. We've come a long way. I've sent each of you a letter indicating where we kind of. When I first got on, we didn't have an office. We were in this building, and we had no money, solely funded by the parish. You know, now we have over $100 million in fixed assets. We have no tax dollars, and we're self-funded through lease rentals. And we do, I think, a pretty good job helping industry, and I think we all understand and how important that Home and Navigation Canal is, and we are striving, and we need to continue to even redouble our efforts to get that thing dredged to at least 20 feet. The deeper the water, the bigger the jobs, the bigger the projects, the more jobs that we have that support Terrebonne Parish. So I think that's extremely important. And with that, I just congratulate the other 2 gentlemen who are going to be on the Port Commission with me and the others. And again, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Ernie. Hang on, we got a couple of lights. You want to let everybody speak first? Or?
Yeah, no, let the others speak.
Yeah.
Bill Purvis.
Mr. Purvis. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is Paul William Purvis. Everybody calls me Bill. My address is 388 Destrahan Drive in Schriever. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve. It's been on my heart for a few years to be more involved in the community. Now, I have the opportunity to leverage my profession, the way I've traveled about the country dealing with other ports, other operators, vessel operators. You know, there's been some tremendous growth the last few years in the vessels that we've been bringing into Terrebonne Parish. When we bring in these ATV tugs, they're pushing 500-foot barges. You know, it lets the world know that we do exist and we are here. And we've overcome that myth that we have no water in the port of Terrebonne. And I'll serve with honor and dignity, and I just thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Purvis. I see the director waving his hand away. Hey, he was a little bit below the seat, but you can come up and speak if you want to speak. And I want to recognize
David Rabelais, 1347 Dr. Beatrice Road, Ontario, Louisiana. I am the port director, Terrebonne Parish. Just like Chris Ernie, I'm very, very ecstatic that we have so much interest. This, you know, up until the last one, and y'all remember that one, but before that, we'd have to beg people to get on the board. So it's very, very good. I appreciate it. You know, industry needs to be part of it, so we're good. So I want to thank y'all. I didn't call any one of y'all. I talked to Danny, but Danny called me. But I didn't call any one of y'all. I didn't want to get involved. I just wanted y'all to do it, you know, like y'all felt like it needed to be done. So here we are. So thank y'all. And I'm going to come. I've been planning to come give a presentation to y'all, but the pandemic kind of slowed that down. But I still plan on coming back in the next few months now that y'all meeting back in here and just giving y'all a presentation and update on where we are. And I'd like to do it every 6 months so that y'all can keep up to date with everything. So that's what I used to do, but we didn't. With the COVID virus, it's been difficult.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. W here?
No, he's not here.
Okay. Mr. Babin.
I want to congratulate all three of them, but I also want to thank Charles Giglio for the 16 years he gave to the Port Commission. Charles served without taking a dime for 16 years, so thank you, Charles.
Mr. Amity.
Yes, I want to also thank all these guys for putting themselves out there and being willing to serve our community. And if, as you go along, anything that we can do, Mr. Rabelais, of course, you know, you can call on us and we'll go to bat for it as well. I think the biggest thing is keeping that channel clear, especially on the outside. I wasn't aware that thing kept moving, so it's probably moved a couple miles, I was told, coming out of the mouth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's moving. It's falling in the channel. It's fallen in the channel for a long time. And they keep curving the channel, and they probably curved it, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 feet from where it was. Can't curve it anymore. So we want, you know, they need to block the sediment. It comes from east to west, and it falls in the channel, and the whole island's falling in. So
again, if you do those reports to us, we can help you with the connections that we have with the federal government and state government, and try and get everybody behind and peel some of that money away from the Mississippi and bring it out over here. So again, thank you guys for putting yourselves out there and being willing to serve the community and the port.
And just one other thing, the deepening study is it's in Washington. It's been in Washington for 2 years. All the boxes are checked. Got a nice ribbon on it. Waiting for the next word bill. They've been keep telling me that we're going to have one this year, toward the end of the year. So just got our fingers crossed. If they don't, we're going to have to wait to the next word bill, which could be 2 years later. So, but we've done everything with the study, and it took 20 years for the Corps to get it up there. And OMB's proved it, and so has the Assistant Secretary of the Army. So we did, everything's ready to go. So next bill, it gets in, and if the bill passes, it'll pass. So.
Mrs. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, and I want to echo what Councilman Babin said as far as Mr. Giglio, and thank him for his service to the board. Like you say, you don't get paid a dime, and I know Mr. Giglio was very passionate about it. But one thing I want to let everybody know is that all of the people on this agenda here to vote for, every one of these guys was more than qualified to serve on this port commission, which is not always what we have when we have a list of this many people. So literally any one of these guys would have been great to be on it, and it was a very tough decision. And I want to let everybody know that those that didn't get appointed, it was not because they were not qualified. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding.
Yes, I enjoyed the process, but this is a notice to everyone that actually in Terrebonne Parish or want to get on one of the Terrebonne Parish boards. I'm not a political person. Really, I'm a representative of Terrebonne Parish. And there were some people that actually made a phone call to me. And I honestly want to make my own decision. I don't want to have to ask nobody else, who is this person? If you want to sit on one of these boards and I don't know who you are, make yourself to be known. So therefore, you know what I mean, even though I feel as if that, you know what I mean, we made the right decision, I also think that, you know what I mean, it can be more respectful. I'm being very honest about it. It's be more respectful to me, to respect me, to talk to me. And we can actually have something to be done. I don't want to have to rely on somebody else. And I don't want to make this a political process. So, you know what I mean, if y'all want to be on these boards, you know what I mean, make a phone call. Take the politics out of it. Thank you.
Mr. Michel.
Congratulations to all you gentlemen. The other thing that I've noticed in the process of looking at this and researching it is the people who serve on this commission have a very wide array of backgrounds and expertises, and that's been, I'm sure that's so helpful to y'all. And so yeah, I just wanted to point that out, and I think the people, the two new guys who were added today are going to add to that as well. And I thank you all for your service to Terrebonne Parish.
I'd like to add to that comment, and you're right. You know, when we first started out, when I took the job 15 years ago, there wasn't anything. So it took a wide range of experience because we had to bring everything in and just create the whole thing. Now that we got it running and we up and running, you know, it's for industry. It should be, industry people should be on the board, you know. So that's what y'all did tonight, and it's going to help us a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Guidry.
Yeah, thanks for everybody that put their name up, and you know, everybody, it was all good people. The problem that we have though on that chip channel, and the way to solve it is rocks, and we won't have to keep having these islands sink into the ship channel. So, I mean, I know you've pushed that, and a lot of other people have pushed that. It falls on deaf ears in Washington with the Corps of Engineers. So, but that's the only permanent way really to fix this problem on the ship channel. And I'm gonna call it the ship channel.
Yeah, that's what we used to call it.
And that's what needs to be done. It needs to be rocked, and it will solve a lot of this problem.
And CPRA is going to spend $150 million putting sand on that island, and they're not building anything to stop it from falling in the channel. So that's the issue. And it's called a terminal growing, and it's rocks that they put on the end 2-mile section, so the island stops at the rocks.
Well, when you dredge the ship channel, you just go ahead and put it back on the island.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
All right.
All right, item C, Downtown Development Corporation Board, 4 expired terms, representing the Historical Society, the Parish Council, the Parish President, and the Arts and Humanities. Mr. Noah Lerat submits an application resume for consideration.
Motion to open, close, and appoint Mr. Lerat and hold the other 3 terms.
Motion to open, close, and appoint Mr. Lerat and hold 3 by Ms. Domingue. Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item D, Terrebonne Art, 1 vacancy due to a resignation representing the Ministerial Service Alliance. Motion to hold, Mr. Jeremy Shell. Second, Mr. Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item E, Child and Youth Service Planning Board, 8 expiring terms, faith-based organization, social services, Office of Juvenile Justice, Department of Health and Hospitals, Office of Behavioral Health, District Attorney's Office, Options for Independence, Gulf Coast Teaching and Family Services, and Homer Police Department. Ms. Andrea Hayes expresses her interest in being reappointed as a social services representative. Open, close, and appoint Ms. Hayes and hold 7 by Mr. Michel. Second, Ms. Jessica Domingue. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Coastal Fire Protection District, one expired term due to a resignation. Motion to hold, Mr. Amity. Second, Mr. Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Home of Fire Municipal Civil Service Board, one expiring term. Mr. Calvin Jones expressed his interest in being reappointed. Motion to appoint Mr. Danny Babin. Second, Mr. Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Terrebonne Parish 911 Communication District, one vacancy due to a resignation. Public, North Terrebonne. Mr. Wayne Ingram submits an application for consideration.
Motion to open, close, and appoint Mr. Ingram.
Open, close, and appoint Mr. Ingram by Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. Cole Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Vacancies to various boards, committees, and commissions. Rec District number 3A, one vacancy due to an expired term. Tree Board, one vacancy due to resignation. 911 Communications District, two expiring terms on 12/31/20. Home of Terrebonne Regional Planning Commission, one expiring term, 11/30/20, and one vacancy due to resignation. South Central Louisiana Human Services Authority, one vacancy representing the medical field, MD, RN, or coroner's office. Homa Public Finance Trust, two expiring terms, 12/26/20. Item 9, council members, discussion. Council Darren Guidry, discussion possible action with regards to obtaining online access and searching of clerk of court public records for the council. Council staff has been withdrawn. Announcements. Parish president's gone. Council. Seeing no announcements. Item 11, monthly engineering reports. Oh, I'm sorry.
You'll have a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Mr. Babin.
That was my sentiments exactly. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody and be safe. Copy, Mr. Guidry.
Thank you. Monthly engineer reports. Prepared, Mr. Derek Guidry. Second, Ms. Domang. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion adjourned, Mr. Amity. Second, Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.